Now, based on the page sections that we defined in the last lecture, so in step number 2, let's now very quickly think about some components that we might need in our page and some first layout ideas as well. And remember that this is an iterative process, so you will never arrive at a perfect solution immediately, but usually only after experimenting a little bit around. Also, we don't have to think about the entire page just yet. All right, and so that's what we will do here in this lecture as well. But anyway, here we have an outline of the sections that we arrived at in the last lecture. Remember that? And so now let's, for a few of them here, think about some of the components that we might need. And so the logo and navigation we will not worry about at this point, but let's think about the hero section. So I was thinking of using a hero like this. And so this is basically one of the examples that we got in the layouts gallery lecture. So in the previous section. And so this is because we have a hero image that looks a little bit like this. So a hero image that we got from the OmniFood content and which would look nice here on the right side of the hero section. So just like here. Then also in the content, we have some headline and we have also a summary. And so basically we have our content follow a little bit the example that we have here. So remember the very important principle that I mentioned a couple of times already, which is that the design and the layout must follow the content and not the other way around. Okay? And so we have a hero image that we got from OmniFood, which looks a bit like this. And so we can then use this very common form of a hero section, right? Next, we're also going to have a featured in section, and that will simply look like this, probably without the text, which we do not have, but it's simply going to be some logos, one beside the other. Then, next up, we have the how it works section, and here I was thinking of using something like this, but we do actually have a lot more content than this, especially the text is a bit longer than this one here, and so we will probably put them one after the other. So using some kind of Z pattern, for example. But I will show you the layout that I ended up with in a minute as well. But first, let's go here through the components. So next up, we have the meals section. And if we take a look at the content, there we had 2 different meals and then also a list of diets. And so for each of these 2 meals, we're going to use a card that looks a little bit like this. So basically with an image on top and then with some data about the recipe or about the meal and using some icons there as well, just like in this component right here. Finally, let's also think about the testimonials and gallery section. And so here I had the idea of putting the testimonials on one side and the gallery on the other side. And so the testimonials might look something like this. So basically this 2x2 grid, because we do also have 4 testimonials. And then on the right side, we could use a gallery like this. So a very simple gallery, just 3x4 images. And that is because we also have exactly 12 images in that folder that we got from OmniFood. So I think this could be a nice section with these 2 components basically side by side. All right, and putting it all together, I arrived at a layout that might look something like this. So as I said before, I like to do these sketches always by hand. And so this is exactly the type of sketch that I always make before coding any new website. And as I said also before, it is not the entire page here, but maybe something like the first half. So it's just so we get a general feeling of the overall layouts and of some of the components that we want to use for the content. Also, I would usually create a couple of different sketches just to experiment around a little bit, like I said in the beginning of this lecture. But here, of course, in this course and in this lecture, I need to keep it short. And so I'm just showing you what I arrived at. And if you still had any doubt if I was something like an artist, then this sketch should be proof that I'm definitely not an artist, right? But of course, here the quality of the drawing does not matter at all. We just want to get our ideas out of our head. And so for that, a sketch like this is perfect. But anyway, of course, here this first section is the hero section. Then here is that featured in section with these 5 logos side by side. Then next, we have the how it works section. And as I mentioned previously, we do actually have a lot more text content in our content file than we have here in this example component. And so we will put these steps here basically one after another using this Z pattern. So can you recognize the Z pattern here? So that's something, again, that we studied before in the last section, I believe. But anyway, next up, as I said, we will then have these cards here for the 2 meals that will be in the meal section. And then, of course, we will have the testimonials here on the left side in the next section, and also the gallery on the right side. And I think that this will create a really, really nice layout for this section. Okay, and yeah, for now, that's actually it. So this is our initial plan, basically, of how we will create the layout of this page. And I will discuss each of the sections, of course, in a little bit more detail as we reach them, as we go through the project here. Okay, and once again, I really hope that it was helpful for you to kind of get a look at what my process is and how I do these sketches, and really how I come up with layouts on my own. Because this is really all that matters for me in this project. So I don't just want you to learn how to build this specific project, of course. I want you to learn how to actually come up with your own layouts based on your own content in the future. And so that's why I'm putting so much emphasis here on this planning step. I think it is really crucial, and I believe that you will experiment the same once you really have to start building some layout on your own, which hopefully will be sooner than later. But anyway, let's now finally start writing our first line of code in the next lecture.